Here we go, and it's probably one of the only streams that I've really, really, really not wanted to do, but I have to do it. I have to do it because the people want to know my takes, my verdicts on what happened last night. Now, last night, obviously, emotions are quite high. Um, Obviously, tempers are flared, and maybe I would have said something last night, which could have potentially resulted in a ban. So let's give it a bit of time to cool down, to relax a bit, and just gauge. But not just that, but to analyze where everybody in the fan base is, what the players are thinking, what the manager is thinking, what the board is thinking, what the ownership is thinking, what every contingent of this club is thinking, and taking a bit of time to sort of think about what do I want to think about? How do I want to think about this? How do I want to remember this? And I think for a lot of people, after the game, I was feeling like, well, that's it. You lose Europa League, Manchester United will just disappear. Like, we'll no longer be a football club after 5 or 10 years because next season we'll get relegated, and you can't afford to keep up with the operational costs of the club that's overinflated, whilst then earning minimal income that is far below Premier League pay grade. Um, and then another part of me today is sort of like, that's probably a bit sensationalist, um, and not necessarily measured, like probably thinking very doomsday like. And maybe it's not going to be that bad, but this this season to end off with such a disappointment in the league, to then absolutely get smashed, right? Smashed not in terms of like we lost 5 or 6-0 kind of smashing in football, but a smashing to your mentality, a smashing to your identity. You know, people will remember that you were the team that lost the final, and not just lost any old final. What, to be honest, right now, you'll give credit where credit is due to Spurs. They have to win a game of football, and they did. But one of the statements I made, that the biggest threat, during the game yesterday on Tony's channel, Hammers Football TV, during the good, the bad, and the ugly, I said that the biggest threat to Spurs this game would be themselves, not any player from Man United, and that the biggest threat to United would be themselves also. And the entire game, first half, second half, it genuinely was the case. That was absolutely the case. United's goal comes from players not dealing with the situation in front of them, and several times in that first half as well, players playing themselves into trouble. Now, is that a system thing? Is that just the individuals, just not very bright, not very smart, not very attuned to playing a certain way? I think that there is something to be said about a lot of these players that played yesterday. You know, would it would they have done better if there was a different manager in charge? Well, maybe in the final we would have won. It's possible we would have won that final with any other manager. But it's understanding why. Why would this team, why would this collection of players win with any other manager? And it's to do with the complacency factor, culture that we've got at this football club. The complacency that a player is able to perform at very low standards with very little consequence. Like at any other football club, I'll give the example, and I gave him a huge amount of abuse yesterday, like ridiculous amount of abuse. But I just feel that strongly about it. I feel that strongly about it. Luke Shaw, right? I call him the TikTok star. I call him Mr. Fat Burger King. Like I throw all sorts of abuse at him, right? And part of that's to do with, watching again your tensions flow and everything. But the other part of it, it's like, but really, for a guy that's meant to be, you know, somebody that's served this club for over a decade, you've seen this club go through all sorts of ups and downs, right? But to sort of feature after so long out of the team that it just felt like it was so deliberate that Luke Shaw, someone who doesn't really play for this football club anymore, is starting, but not just starting, playing for 90 plus minutes in this Man United team when he has not contributed in any significant manner. Even Aiden Heaven would have been a better option in this team. Better yet, if you want the experience factor, Dallo was on the bench. You could have taken a chance on him because you can sit there and you can say, well, listen, you may be returning from injury, but this is an all or nothing game. So you chance it on that. An all or nothing game. Masraoui plays where Yoro played. Yoro plays where Maguire plays where Maguire plays, or something like that. And Yoro plays in the other one of the centre back three positions, with then where Masraoui plays, Dallo plays in that position there. Dorgu, a lot of the time was getting into good positions to, delivering a cross, but I think just the impact several times down that left hand side, I feel like, he could have done better with the execution to really create stuff for the team. But he wasn't a problem. He wasn't a problem. He was one of the better performers in this game. It's just he's not got a huge amount of quality at the moment. We can hope that with experience he can find the ability to to bring quality to the pitch. But that again is a project. It's a project signing. You don't sign a guy like Patrick Dorgu to say, you're going to be delivering for us from the moment you get here. Like, we signed him because we didn't have anybody else in that position. We were using right-sided players to play on the left-hand side. So we signed him just for the sake of convenience. Now, if you wanted somebody that was a bit more of a, proven track record at a good age, you could have just utilised the buyback clause for Alvaro Fernandez. Now, in the pre-season, I watched him play. Alvaro Fernandez was actually quite neat and tidy, and I said, look, this guy's got some really strong potential. We should keep him. But no, they got rid of him. They sold him off for about 15 mil. And it just, since then, it's just been an absolute shit show. But with that game last night, people might say, well, Luke Shaw, sure, we can have our reservations with Luke Shaw, but, the manager picks a team. And yes, he does. And the team selection was not right in that instance. Fernandez playing in Casemiro, what you wanted was what you really wanted was physicality. You wanted energy. You wanted something there that helps you compete with the opposition's midfield, because they work to have three in their midfield, and United looked like in the midfield aspect of the team that we were overwhelmed. by the opposition, and that there just wasn't really the right balance in the team to commit to, breaking down the Spurs defence, and Ange, where we usually see Ange play, high line, we joke about it all the time, we banter them for it, only way of him playing. But let's be real, he changed around and went super. He absolutely parked the bus. The most defensive I think we've ever seen a Spurs team play. And they've had Jose Mourinho, Nuno Espirito Santo, and Antonio Conte as their last three managers. And you get the most attacking manager, the highest defensive line, suddenly play the deepest we've ever seen a Spurs team play. I mean, they won the final 1-0 with 3 shots all game. They didn't even, like, their XG for the second half was 0. They didn't even have a shot. They didn't kick the ball towards our goal in the second half. They didn't do it once. It was all United. And all that time of them having no threat, the formation still featured fullbacks playing in wing-back positions. Where was the attacking impetus? Where was the dynamism? The team's got to be dynamic. The team's got to know when to defend and when to attack. You can't do that if you hold a defensive formation against a team that's telling you, guess what? We are not going to attack you. We are parking the bus. You come to us. United and Amorim should be looking at that and going, sure, okay, let's sub on the attacking players. Let's throw the bus at Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, talking of the midfield situation, Fernandes playing in that midfield offers you no defensive coverage in that team. Fernandes could have played where Mount played. Now, Mount probably only gets in because of his 2 goals against Athletic Bilbao in the second leg of the semi-finals. That's probably the only ticket to starting this final that Mason Mount had. But for a guy that's really not played that much this season, and we hear that the manager really likes him, and it's like, well, something's not right here, Ruben. How can you like a player that's not performing? How can you like a player that's not done well? How can you like a player that's not actually been the difference maker in any game, in any performance, barring a semi-final, second leg game, where at that time, at that stage, we were set to go through. It's just you put the ball in the back of the net the first time round, and then the floodgates opened at Old Trafford. But you didn't send us through. You really didn't send us through. It's just you just so happened to get the ball in the back of the net a couple of times. Now, in terms of the rest of the team, Casemiro, what's he really expected to do? He's, dependent on in a defensive capacity. Where was Agate? Manuel Agate, unused substitution. Amorim, you've seen him in the Premier League. The guy can compete physically with Premier League players, right? That's a guy that you want to choose to play in that midfield to hold it down. Casemiro helps with the possession. Yeah, you have the possession factor with Casemiro in that team. You've got the legs with Agate. That's your midfield dynamic. Why are you thinking that putting Fernandes with no defensive wherewithal in that position to try and use passing range to create something for players that aren't really good at holding up play, but like your Bruno Fernandes, your creative outlets are either to Mason Mount, who's not really somebody that's got a lot in the locker to actually play against the opposition, opponent defences and everything. You've got Amad Diallo, that's a guy that needs to drive at people, needs to be given a little bit of space and support. You're not necessarily going to get that when, you're a much more narrower, closer to where the striker is in the centre of the pitch. You need to have more open space. A wing back would have been a good position for him when you're playing like this is the thing. Amad Diallo, he's taking on the Spurs fullback a lot of the time, but he's one of the inside tens, so he's got less players that he's playing the ball to. He's not playing the ball to as many options in the middle because the person that would be the extra body is too busy on the halfway line marking absolutely nobody because Spurs have no intent in having somebody up there ready to make a run. There's no point. They weren't set up to do that. So Amarim needed to put Diallo in the wide position as the extra body. The line pushes further up. Of course Spurs are going to go for a counter-attack, but you're taking an initiative that Spurs want you to, come at them. You need to seek the initiative. Use quality and attack that you do have to overload the defence. They're not a good defence. I'm sorry, they're not. You can break that Spurs team down with limited chances, limited options. They were making mistakes. Like for some reason on this match, the match ratings, for some reason Vicario was given man of the match. I don't necessarily think Vicario was splendid. I think he just did an all right job, but a couple of times he really put Spurs' hearts in the mouths. And Onana was absolutely just pointless. Literally had nothing to do except for a ricocheted ball that's travelling at 1 mile per hour. You just need to tip yourself over and get down to put your hand in the way. But it's just the reaction to what was going on was so slow. Luke Shaw allowing a player to come the wrong side of him to still get, the goal given. And it was given to Brennan Johnson from a Papas Matasar cross. So what are we doing here? As you heard, but Fuzzy, I feel your pain in that game last night. I think a lot of people did, and a lot of people who were hoping that Spurs would lose that game have realised the nightmare that is. That Spurs will be, shameless with it, and they'll be unbearable. And apparently, based off of what stories are telling us at the moment, Man United, from the poor performance in Premier League and not qualifying for Champions League, the total prize earnings we could have had, right, we would have been £140 million better off than what we have right now. So, yeah, it is, it is a big problem. I've seen today that there's talks in the media about, United, we've got about £100 million to spend in the transfer market. And I think it's like, I don't think so, mate. I don't think so. That we've got £100 million to spend, because that constantly goes against the entire narrative that they've been pushing, the agenda that they pushed for so long. That it's Europa League or bust. Otherwise, we just won't really spend anything. And we've also then had another doomsday writer say that, well, everything's in jeopardy now. Even the Cunha deal may not happen because the United, have issues about spending money. And the problem is that for people that will say, we genuinely don't have money to spend, oh no, we're in trouble. Well, actually, if I may, that's not really the case. That's not really the case. Because two things, right? I've noticed conversations about FFP, right? apparently not being in a European competition doesn't actually strain you out as much as the spending habits of a bigger club. Therefore, United actually have less regulations stopping them from spending more money outside of the a European competition versus how much they would be limited or regulated if they were in it. So there's point number one that I think we need to just keep in mind. Point number two, there's players you can sell and players that you can then buy to replace. I've seen people work out rough fee estimations if we sell a whole crop of players. And I sort of echo this sentiment. There is the opportunity to make somewhere in the regions of about 200 plus million pounds from player sales out of this squad, right? And it is quite an extensive list, but it is doable. 200 million pounds plus whatever money you get from the season, with less regulation. PSR, if you make sales this summer at certain levels, like certain transfer fees, some of the sales you make are not hindered by PSR as long as they are within certain valuation. They're not hindered by PSR. So PSR, technically speaking, won't really look at us if we do the sales well or do the sales all right. So the board can operate with getting players out of the club in, an efficient manner. You can then sign players, and a lot of the players we've got on our, to buy list technically would replace a lot of these players that would have been here anyways, right? They would have benched some of those guys. But actually, the amount of money that we would end up spending anyways for getting all of the players we want would have been roughly around the £150 million ballpark. So actually, we would sell players for more money than we would be spending money on players coming in to replace the ones going out. And you don't have to go breaking the bank on everyone. You really don't. There is market opportunity. So if I swear to God, if I see anybody at this club say there's no market opportunity, we can't spend any money, that's bullshit. There absolutely is market opportunity. You're just lazy and shit at your job. To put it simply, there's no translation needed for that. You would just be shit at your job. So, it is what it is. Don't know what the fuck that comment is. Still can't believe Tottenham won a European trophy. It sucks. Yes, it does. It's a shame. Well, more so for you because we've actually won European trophies as well. Eze has been linked with Tottenham now, expected, but I'll tell you what, Tottenham, you'll be buying off a Europa League club, embarrass Eze, can Daniel Levy give him what he wants? And would he be willing to do that sort of business? So yeah, that's the big issue. But yeah, just looking at what people are saying here. We're asking who would you sell this summer? To be honest, sell everybody. Garnacho, I mean, talks about Garnacho's, frustrations, airing his frustrations after full time, saying that the season is shit. But I can't understand why I'm benched, but two other players that haven't played for pretty much all season long are starting in a European final ahead of me. Now, I can understand that sort of sentiment where you feel like, why is somebody that is never around getting a higher priority in the starting list than me? On that simple premise. Now, one of the things I would say to counteract that, where I feel like maybe that's out of place, is that you're not actually one of the best players at the club. You're not. It's like with an Amad Diallo, for example. If Amad Diallo didn't have his injury and he was playing and he was one of the best performing players at our club, and then all of a sudden Mason Mount comes back from injury and he gets benched. With that, I can say, well, literally, what the fuck? Because Amad Diallo is actually one of the better players at the club. But Garnacho has been, when he has been given the nod, when he has been getting game time, when he has been selected to play, too many times this season, we've seen attributes in his individual game that has probably cost Manchester United more than it's benefited. So we need to stop pretending that Garnacho is speaking gospel, right? We need to stop pretending that he's speaking gospel and like, oh yeah, I totally sympathise with him. You are part of a squad that has been a record-breaking failure, and it is record-breaking failure for Manchester United. Therefore, as you are a part of it, you are also culpable to the problem. You are culpable, right? A big part of the problem. And the same thing with everybody else, right? Same thing with everybody else. You are culpable to the problem. For me, I feel like we need to get into we need to get into the habit of having players at this football club that really just focus on being the very best players they can possibly be. And I just feel like there's too many prima donnas that really gas themselves up to ridiculous levels, like who think they are it, or that they've made it, or that this is the final installment, this is the best version of me. And anybody that disagrees is obviously a hater, and then they'll send all of the lapdogs and the fan base after them because criticism equals bad. If you critique something, you must be Adolf Hitler reincarnated. That's just how people are with the hysterics in the fan base when you call something out. But I'll stand by my viewpoints on things. I really just think that with Garnacho, whilst the sentiment of getting benched by players that have not featured all season is an understandable sentiment, just very much keep in mind that you need to look in the mirror. You need to look in the mirror and understand. Well, look, I've not been good this season either. I've been really shit this season, and I think if he had at least held his hands up, just said, I disagree with this, I do, but the whole squad collectively has been absolutely atrocious. I am a part of that squad, right? I have to hold my hands up and say, I have also been shit this season. I have to do better. Holding yourself to account, as an accountable standard, is a trait that we would appreciate a whole lot more than saying your piece and then leaving it solely on the shoulders of the manager, right? The whole point is that you defend each other. That's the whole point of a team. You defend each other, right? You back each other up. When you know that something's not been acceptable, you know how to take accountability for yourself. We've seen too many times this season, Garnacho does not take accountability for himself. So that's going to be a personality issue that for a guy that's inexperienced, and he's not far off being more as an experienced player because he is 20. We've seen players that are younger act more mature than him, right? We can't keep passing you off and your behaviours off as well. He's just a kid. Oh, he's going to learn. He's going to get it out of his game. Sooner or later, it's going to be another case of Jesse Lingard. It really would be another case of Jesse Lingard. Habits that, you know, ability deficiencies, we just pass it off as like, oh, but he's young, he's got lots to learn. And it's like, mate, the guy's pretty much going on 30. How can he still be inexperienced? How can he still be a prospect? Oh, trust me, just give him some more time and he'll get there. And that's become an unhealthy obsession. That goes into Oyland as well. Give him time, time. Guess what thing Manchester United Football Club have run out of? It's time. Manchester United don't have time anymore. Time's run out. The clock stopped. We have to really start turning things around now. Otherwise, it will be too late. We won't come back. And keeping on the idea of project players, I mean, Rasmus Højlund. I really do feel like with Rasmus Højlund, you're 22 years of age and you're also being just regarded as a prospect player. Now, you came in a season where you were given the number 9 as you are the front man now. Like, you lead the attacking lineups. We can hold the board completely accountable for selling you down the river and you not really having somebody to look up to and say, I'm going to learn my game and my trade off of you. Instead, you was expected to lead the lineups. But this season, we've actually seen you regress. We've seen lower standards on your own account. So that's a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a major problem, Rasmus. 22 years of age, you should be starting to fill out as a player. We should be starting to see you kick on a little bit. As a young player, if you haven't got a striker that's experienced ahead of you to learn from, you be more observant. See what other strikers in their game at other football clubs are doing and think, let me apply that in training. Let me see if I can do that in training. There's so many different ways that you can make the striker position your own. They've thrown you into the deep end. Now, if it's too big a role for you, just say, I need more help. Just say you need more help. The boards will actually take into account the feedback they get from the managers. So why have you not been saying to your manager, I need help. I cannot handle all of this on my own. I need the support. I need more options to help me and support me. There's, again, no communication. No communication. And the way in which you handle yourself as an individual on a pitch, even without much service, for the things you can do, the things you can control, you're not controlling them well at all. You play in a certain way that makes you look like you have less IQ points than some of the dumbest players that have played football professionally. It really does. Like the decision, like one of the feats that I've seen in that game was one when you tried to go for a header, and the most obvious option for you to go with is a chest control because it's a low altitude ball. You're not looking up at the ball. You're actually looking eye level. Usually, a player goes to chest control it, bring it down into the path, and then shoot. Easy as you like. Instead, what he does is he actually lets his body go to the other side of the ball, right? And then he tucks his head back to try and get his head around it. Like, you're doing some of the most ridiculous physical gymnastics to try and make that work. What's the point in that? Really, what's the point in that? And I know it's not momentum that's done that, because it's a little more side on. He's not running at full speed. He's actually sidestepping. He's sidestepping for it. Simply just slow your roll, take your time, bring the ball down into chest control, shoot. It's at the perfect height for you. You had the space. There was no centre backs going in for the challenge at the time. They afforded you time. And it's in those split seconds that makes a difference between a non-talented striker and a talented striker. But you chose to make the chance that much harder for yourself. And that's what we can't afford to have trying to learn their trade at this club, is somebody that cannot help themselves. So, Team Master 70, big ups to you, man. It's a disgrace. Absolutely disgrace. We're fried. Yeah, now, next time we'll be in Champions League, Bruno is 33. That's judging that things go well as well, by the way, Team Master. That's judging that we bounce back, immediately. Next season goes really, really well. We end up within the top positions in the Premier League, and maybe win a competition on the side. That's if things go well. That Bruno ends up getting into the Champions League at 33. But here's the problem with a club that pertains to needing value for money, right? It struggles with spending habits and is trying to make cuts and everything. Is it not more practical for a board that thinks like that to be selling a player like Bruno at his age for an extortionate fee? Like, even if it was 100 million, that's a lot of money for a 31-year-old that not as many people really rate that highly. That's like Charlie Charlie in a Chocolate Factory's golden ticket, just found in a transfer fee right there and then. I mean, how many players have we got in our squad where we can absolutely um, claim, hell yeah, we'll take that. £100 million. How many players have we got in the squad that we can sell for £100 million? Like Bruno, when people say, "Oh, we'll sell Bruno," not many of them would have, barely anybody would have said, "Oh, 100 million." Like, some of them probably would have said, well, 50 or 60. You might tempt some people with that, given that his age profile and everything. But Saudi have just gone absolutely crazy and offered us a fee that is just ridiculous for a player that's 31. And I know that people coin this and say, but without Bruno, we would have been relegated this season. But I feel like there's a dynamic there that's quite similar to how we had with Ronaldo. That when Ronaldo's in the team, everything seemingly goes through him. Without him there, the pattern goes through other players. It goes through other channels. Now, even if they're not as good, if you share it out, you can find at the same rate of goal conversions as one player was when everything was going to him. Bruno Fernandes getting into a lot of goal scoring positions and finding a lot of assists. What's to say that bringing a different dynamic to the team where Bruno's not there, that other players wouldn't have stepped up and found impact? We've not really got players at the moment that can really live up to that standard of goals, conversions, or assists, GA, stats and everything. We don't have an individual that can do that at the moment, which is why we need to sign attacking midfielders that can create and score. That's why I think having Acuna in the team as well as a Cherky, both of them being there, is imperative. If you want to talk about goal conversions, you need someone that's good with creating in and around the box, as well as somebody who can finish. We don't want somebody who's not making the intelligent decisions. You need someone who's smart enough to put themselves in a good position to receive a ball to strike. Would Liam Delap give us that? I don't know. I know Gyökeres perhaps would do that. And we know that he's got some good ability. He's a very strong asset in front of goal. Very, very strong asset. But now that we haven't got European qualifications, not so much with the whole, like, we'll struggle with convincing him to come with Champions League. I mean, we can still offer him a big stacked wage. I mean, it's possible that you could still make him come to the club. but everyone's written it off completely by saying, hey, look, you can't sign this player anymore. The market opportunity's gone. And it's like, I'm sick and tired of hearing market opportunity this, market opportunity that. If there's a player you want, there's a player you can get. And if you try hard enough and push the right buttons, you will get the player. It's like, it's a much difficult proposition if you're like an Ipswich Town trying to sign Kylian Mbappe. Well, it's nigh on impossible for you. You could tick a box where it's like, well, you could offer him a lot of money. It would be absolutely, it would probably screw the club completely, but you could do that for the short term. But then it's obviously ambition, and you say to them, look, this is what we are at the moment. Okay, no, see you, bye. Ipswich straight away would get rejected. You mention the name Manchester United. As shit as we've been, as colossally bad as we've been, you mention Manchester United, players don't instantly dismiss it. You can turn ahead with the mention of the club name, but it matters what you do with going after these players. It really does. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe is incessant about having the best recruitment in the world at this football club, you best believe that Victor Gyökeres transfer deal is not hindered because, oh, we can't afford him. Well, you can afford him. You absolutely can. You can find a way. You can find a way. It's not impossible. How do clubs, like, look at clubs in other countries, right, that have like 50 million euro budgets, and then you look at them that season, they'll finish in like second place, and they play some of the best football. Like they qualified for Europa League the year before, get really deep in the competition, and they've now got several players that the top clubs in the world want. How have they done that? Really limited budgets. They make it work. They find a way. It's always the thing with football. But all we see with Ineos is excuses and reasons as to why we can't compete, why the next 10 years are going to be really bad. No, it's because you're just not that good at your jobs. It's just because you're admitting failure before you've even given it a shot. Because if we want to believe that you are the right ones for us, would you not think it's more proactive to actually push yourselves with, you know, doing the right sort of business with players going out, getting good transfer fees, choosing the right players to stay, signing the right players, and actually understanding how to back a manager as opposed to, well, is he the right man? Is he not the right man? Who knows? And the thing is we don't know if Ruben Amorim right now is going to be the right one. Let's not make any mistake. He's literally only had Patrick Dorgu as a signing so far. Literally, that is it. And Aiden Heaven. Two players. One of them is pretty much still on the brink of that academy level. Like, and it's crazy that so many people are absolutely, yeah, mind is made up, guys are fraud. It's funny you should say that because half of these people who call him the fraud were excited because he can actually coach. I thought Ten Hag could coach when he came in. So I'm not feeling this vibe with a lot of people who flip the switch and say he can go from being a top coach and then, yeah, maybe he's the right man, maybe he's not the right man, we'll see, but he can actually coach to, he's a complete fraud, he can't coach, he's useless, he has no idea, he's out of his depth. It's crazy how the mind sways. It's easily influenced. Something happens, immediately 180. And that's a mindset we've got to really curb, because if you want to talk about where managers fail, the common denominator I've always found with managers failing is that it's always the same players that seemingly take the limelight in the moments of failures when all of these managers end up getting the sack. And then we're like, oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely the play. Yeah, it's definitely the players. It's definitely the players that hold the manager back, and then the players carry on. You know, they keep underperforming. Then it becomes the manager. Then it suddenly starts to spawn the mentality that another manager, anyone but this manager, would get a better tune out of these players. And the problem is that every time we've given that saying the benefit of the doubt, it's always come full circle and proven to be wrong. Every single time. Every single time. And we're in this position now. We're saying any manager that isn't Ruben Amorim, people saying get Ten Hag back. Mate, the guy was absolutely disrespected by the bucket loads, shed loads of disrespect for that guy. Who, by the way, some people said he's not ever going to get another job again. He's never going to get a job at the top level because he's useless. He's a fraud. He doesn't know ball. Well, he's undergoing the interview stage and talks proceeding in a good manner with Bayer Leverkusen. This man's replacing a Bundesliga winner. Well, so Bayer Leverkusen, that's not a top job, not a top job. Definitely nowhere near the top of the world football. Nowhere near. Not even in the same sport at this rate. Can't be. Impossible. But there goes that guy getting another top job opportunity, albeit in the Bundesliga that some Premier League stands think is the Farmers League. Well, in its own capacity, how many times has a German team beaten a Premier League team? Quite often. Quite often at the top end of Bundesliga, albeit this season, Spurs beating Eintracht Frankfurt. Eintracht Frankfurt underperformed, undersold themselves, and yeah, just failed to deliver in Europa League. Kind of like Spanish teams against Man United. Both Sociedad and Bilbao um, pretty much shit the bed against us. You know, so we've got we've got a very difficult dynamic at this club at the moment. Really, really difficult dynamic. Where for me, if a 60 million offer comes in for Garnacho this summer, I'm selling instantly with 60 million. We need to, for 60 million pounds. Some people might say that he's not even worth 40 million, right? Like for me, if you can get 60 million for Garnacho, that's a good deal. I'm taking it. See you bye. There's a lot of people that would disagree with that, but no, I'm taking that deal 100%. 60 million for Garnacho, I'm taking that. 100 million pounds for Bruno Fernandes, I'm taking that. Casemiro, big wages. Listen, this season you tried to get a resurgence, and that's okay, but it's an end. It's an end of a particular era at this club. It is an end of a particular era. We've got to find a way, right, to actually recycle and hit the big reset button at this club, and that does involve the majority of this squad. The majority, most of these players have got to go, and we've got to perhaps this is the only chance we've got really at making Ralph Rangnick's open heart surgery quote come true, because beyond this, maybe all hope would really be lost. And some people, well, some of the quotes from some people who say, well, actually, Amorim not being in Europe is a blessing in disguise. Can spend more time on the training pitch with these players, and I think, well, these players, it's not that they don't. That it's sort of a little bit of one and definitely the other. It's not that they can't learn it, because they definitely can't. Is that it's a little bit of they don't really want to. They don't really want to learn the system because it's a bit more difficult to grasp. It's a bit more difficult to understand or to implement on the pitch. I mean, Ruben Amorim, if he stayed at Sporting Lisbon, you know, people will say, well, Amorim at Sporting Lisbon, he had something fantastic going on there. Second he left, shit really hit the fan. It's just that the gap that he'd already established with them that season was so massive that once they sorted out the manager situation there, they they settled down and ended up winning the Portuguese league. Amorim needs to find a way and find a squad in Manchester United where his sporting system is in effect at this club with the right type of player, and that we can actually see him really implementing a style of play that is his style, not borrowed, um, you know, borrowed idea. It's an idea. It's a prototype. It's a prototype of just getting us started. I'm not interested in seeing you use a prototype to get started. I'm interested in seeing you having enough time to bring a squad together that plays your style. You'll have younger players coming through that you can coach it into, but you need players that are experienced enough to actually join and take the mantle and run with it. You need players that are ready, and that's what I want us to see. That's what I want to see from us. To see you actually take charge, take charge of it all. But instead, we're just floundering around, and it doesn't really feel like the club is going into the summer with that much of an idea. Like, yeah, we definitely know what we're doing. There's definitely a plan here, and it's like they've almost already conceded that this summer's going to be shambolic without actually have completed it, even so much as one deal. And it's like you don't know that it's going to be shambolic until you have let it be shambolic. So I want the fan base ultimately to hold the board to that really high standard and to hold them accountable. The performance that we had last night was an insult to this club again, and it was an insult to this fan base again. And the prospect of absolute embarrassment and trying to find a way of accepting it within the club, it should be met with booing, relentless booing. It's like last game of the season on Sunday against Aston Villa. That game's going to be a loss because Aston Villa are chasing Champions League. That's incentive right there. United could not be fucked right now. We can't be fucked anymore. The last shred of importance to our season's gone. There's nothing to play for. Last game of the season, nobody cares. Nobody's going to care. And you know what? That should be the perfect opportunity for fans to really make it known that you don't just get our support for free. You don't get the luxury of having us cheering you on for free. I'd want to see that game's attendance to be embarrassingly low, like really low. Like I want it to be so bad that City fans can use the empty had jokes on Man United. I want that to be the case, right? Where they can turn the humour around on us, the banter onto us for our attendance. I want that many people to not turn up on Sunday. Don't go in there. Seriously, because Nobody's cheering you on for the last game of the season. The club, it sends a big message to the club that the fan base are just done with you. And your end of season send off that clubs usually do as the home teams, right? They'll take a little lap around the pitch, applauding the fans and everything. I want there to be no fans to applaud. I want them to the final whistle to go. The Aston Villa players will go celebrate with their fans at getting Champions League football, and the United fans to just look around the stadium and go, "There's just literally nobody to clap to. There's nobody to apologise to. There's no one to, you know, to to even engage with. Like, there's just nobody there. Like, there's nobody at the stadium for the manager to talk to on the microphone like they usually do. Just nobody." And that emptiness just shows a solidarity with the fan base that you don't get us for free. You have to earn our respect and our support, because you disrespecting us with your lowering of standards. And this is an extended message to the board, because those guys, the executives of the club, will be there. They'll have people there at the last game of the season, sat in the executive seats at Old Trafford, and they would look around the stadium and see nobody else there. And I'll think, where is everybody? Like, what's happened? And that's kind of the shock that I really want them to have. I really want them to have that shock. And above all else, the thing I really would love most to happen is for this to happen. Glinios to sell up and give us to Qatar. Give us to Sheikh Jassim. Give us to somebody who actually is more who he says he is as a Manchester United supporter. You know, some guy that's got enough money to buy pretty much every single club barring one or two, Barcelona and Real Madrid. He could buy every other club in the world. He's got enough money to do that. He could have easily done that to spite the Glazers and Man United, easily. But he said the only club that I'm at all interested in having ownership of, if I ever do, is Manchester United. And we have not gone away. Right? And I do believe that. They won't sing it to the world. They won't tell the world, hey guys, we still love Manchester United. We still hope to control, we still hope to own them one day. They're not going to sing and dance about that. They're just going to quietly just employ one or two people, just keep an eye on the situation with their ownership and just feed it back to us when something happens. And that's it. That's it. They nothing else. So, and that's the thing, is the actions will speak louder than words, right? They don't need to go to the news tabloids and outlets and say, "Hey guys, just so you know, this is, this is how we feel about the club, and this is how we feel about what we'd like to do with ownership of it." They're not interested in prancing around with mainstream media. They're just interested in when it becomes a factor, when it becomes a thing, they'll act. They'll walk the walk. They won't just talk the talk, they'll walk the walk. And that's pretty much it. It's as simple as that. But anyways, guys, leave your thoughts and your feelings down in the comment section down below. I'm going to wrap it up there. And yeah, Aston Villa preview. To be honest, I might not rendition it as a preview for the game on Sunday. I probably won't. I think what I'll end up doing is just probably just propaganda. Like, I'll probably just spew out propaganda to fuel up a fan base against the ownership. To be honest, I'll probably have no interest in, oh yeah, guys, support the players, support the team. Like, I'm not interested with that. I'm done with supporting this team. Like the collective of individuals in this team do not deserve they do not deserve the support at all. Not interested in it until they can make a pledge to us that they will do everything. Um, that they will do everything for us. For me, I'm not interested. Really not interested. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit them likes. Um, I mean, shit, we could end up with more likes on this stream than Tottenham had shots in the final. And the like target's 3. The like target's 4, actually. You know, one more shot than Spurs had all game. But thanks for watching, guys. Cry with me. Hopefully, you guys have sympathy. You might be laughing your heads off, potentially, possibly. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, we'll be back again either tomorrow or Saturday for the previews for not preview for propaganda against the Glazers and Ineos on Saturday, well, Friday or Saturday. So yeah, catch you then. Take care, people, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday evenings. And yeah, goodbye.